page in your visual journal. For this one, you're going to do the work straight onto your page in the visual journal. So see that to just see what you're going after, and of course the assignment. So you're going to be making a color blend of the color spectrum. You're going to be making 2 squares actually of complementary colors. I'll get into that in a second. You're going to be playing around with 8 different ways of just putting pencil on paper for different pencil techniques. And we're also going to be looking at the idea of tones with color. So let's jump in. Your page, you can use a ruler or you can just map this out yourself. You're going to need a box. You know, it doesn't have to be across the whole page, but that's going to be for your color blend of your Roy G. Biv color spectrum of pure color. We're going to have 2 overlapping boxes just like this that will be for our complementary color cross blends. I'll get into that in a second, why we're doing that. This is going to be to create a tone of a color. And then here are those 8 boxes for different techniques. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on each one of these. I probably won't complete the sample, but this way you get an idea of what to do, and then you can just jump in for yourself. So for this one, we're going to use what we've learned from the last exercise, and you're just going to use those. You're going to start with just your 3 colored pencils, red, yellow, blue, okay? Do not start picking up orange and green and purple. Because then you're missing the point. And again, I will know that you didn't blend these out from just the 3 primary colors. All right, so I'm going to begin by laying down a very light layer of red. I'm not going to be putting full pressure on my pencil. I'm going to run it right up to my pencil edge because the graphite pencil, because I don't want to be left with that. And as I start to run it down the page across the box, I'm actually going to lighten the amount of colored pencil I'm putting down, because that's where the overlap's going to start to happen, where I start making my red orange into my orange and then eventually into my yellow. So it'll look like a bit of a value change actually. So I'm just going to leave a little section here that eventually I will bring up to full opacity with just my pure red. I'm going to make sure that I've put enough colored pencil down in layers. I'm not trying to do it all in one pass because that can give sloppy pencil technique looks, and then it's harder to control the blending of the color, right? So then I'm going to come in with the yellow and say, well, I kind of want my yellow orange to start here, and maybe here is where I want to start my red orange. So right here is going to be the start of my red orange. And so I'm going to go over that seam where the red is with my yellow a little bit. And then I'm going to put down my layer of yellow and pull that out to over this way. So what you're going to see happening is there's going to be this overlapping of color into color. So then I'm going to go back with the red and go over top the yellow. And that's going to be where I actually am going to start creating the orange into my yellow orange. And again, what I really want you guys to impress upon you is to notice at first how lightly I'm applying colored pencil, and I'm not immediately jumping to, oh, let me make everything full opacity like what I'm doing right now on the edge over here, because I really need to learn how to control my layering of my pencil and what's happening with my color as I'm putting it down on my page, okay? So, if I want to kind of go for it on this end to start to bring up and define that opaque red, okay, that's fine. I can start that. And I would just continue in this method of, having one color fade and the next color kind of go over the top and into that first color, and then work that back and forth method that you learned again in the last assignment until I start to get the colors transitioning smoothly. That's the goal, a smooth transition from one color to the next. All right, so now I'm going to move on to this guy. Let me make sure I'm on screen for you guys. So now we're going to just get into some nuts and bolts of color, further color mixing. So I want to find out what happens actually when I start instead of just mixing primaries to get a secondary or a secondary with a primary to get a tertiary. What happens when I really start crossing a lot of colors? So what I'm going to do in these squares is I'm going to pick two complementary colors. If you forget what those are, you can go back to your color wheel that you've made and just look across the color wheel. That's complements. So I could do yellow and purple, I could do red and green, or I could do blue and orange. I'm going to start with blue and orange. So I'm gonna come here, and the first thing I'm gonna do is lay down my blue, just to remind myself that's what I'm doing in this square, okay? And again, these don't have to be perfect squares. The book is yours to make as you will. So if some of you are fine with freehanding this stuff and you like that, you know, more loosely drawn look, then go for it. If some of you hate that and use the no, I need a ruler, I want perfect squares, then go grab a ruler. It's really up to you. I'm not gonna judge you on if your boxes are exact perfect squares or not. Just make sure the overlap is significant enough that you can really see what's gonna happen in this overlap center square here. The little square that happens with the overlap of the two squares. All right, so there's my blue. All right, now I'm gonna come in and I have to make my orange. So I'm gonna lay down that foundation of yellow. And I know this is a bit of a pain, guys, I get it. But again, it's really crucial that you learn how to control color by not just saying, well, I'm just gonna go grab the color that I need and just put that down. Because for the project, you are going to be matching all sorts of imperfect color. And you're going to have to get very good at knowing the colors you need to make that new color you see in whatever your image is that you're working with for the project. So the more you practice that skill right away, the better you're going to get at it, the easier the project will become, and you won't be struggling so much. That's really going to be my message as you start moving through this project. And this is what I would be saying in class. So I am giving you the full-blown, you know, it's as of, you know, I'm sitting at that desk and I am demonstrating through the document camera. This is what would be happening in class. So if you're watching this, bravo, because this is really what you need to be successful. All right, so I'm gonna keep working this up to be an orange that I'm kind of happy with, where it's really starting to look like a nicely blended out color. But where I'm going to be overlapping the blue and the orange in the center, I'm actually gonna be careful to not get too much colored pencil built up on my paper. And notice, I do like turning my paper, guys. That's just a me thing. I don't wanna fight the direction I have to color in. So instead of me having to turn my arm at an odd angle, I just turn the paper. Work smarter, not harder. All right. So I'm happy with this orange in general. You know, I'm not going to worry about perfectly blending it out in the outer square. Again, my focus is really now going to turn to this center square here. So I'm going to take this orange that's sitting in here, and now I'm going to start bringing in that blue, because I want to see what happens when I start crossing that orange with a blue. And this is the miracle and the wonder of complementary colors. It actually is something, it's a lesson that we're gonna pull into painting as well as this project. And I might start to differentiate this, like I'm gonna start to take the edge of the blue just a little bit more opaque, just so I can see that transition a little more clearly. You know, edges are important. And sometimes having a really fuzzy edge where you have a transition of color is not so great. And so I want to see this edge of transition and really know where my pure blue hue is and where my blended out complementary color starts. So, you know, I'm going to come in here and put another layer of that blue in there. And then I might come in with kind of both my yellow and my red on top of this to continue with the idea of orange. But notice what's starting to happen is I'm getting this sort of muddy, mucky color that is not really, it's like if I asked you to name this color, you might have a little bit of a hard time. I'd be like, I can't really give that a name. So what happens when you blend complementary colors is you get a tone, what we call a tone. And a tone is basically leading towards the idea of a neutral. Neutrals being grays, blacks, tans, browns. And those colors are really crucial to help you get to the particular qualities that a lot of you are going to be dealing with in your project in terms of color. Because you're going to have colors that are not just pure chroma, you know, full intensity yellows and greens. They're going to be tones of those colors. They're going to be variations of those colors. And you're going to have to figure out exactly what you need to add as you're mixing and blending out your color to really get to the match of what you see in your photograph. And I find that bringing in the complement is really where it's at. And so I say that 5,000 times for this project, and you're gonna see in the future video, you're gonna see me starting to use that in what I'm messing around with in terms of the greens in the photo that I've selected for the project. So can you see how this is kind of going some mucky, brownish color? Again, hard to define. It's not exactly even across the sample. So I would, you know, I put down a little bit more blue over on this side than this side so I can even that out and start to blend it out more. But this is what we're after with this idea of complementary color crossing, is making a tone. So let's get to tones. What is a tone? A tone is a color that has had the intensity of brightness sucked out of it by adding a neutral to it. So if we add white to a color, all we do is change the value. So if I add white to red, I'm gonna get pink, right? If I add black to it, it just becomes a darker, you know, maroon color, but it still has that red hue to it. It's still red, just a darker version of itself. If I add something like this or this, then that's going to change the nature of the color itself. So in the classroom, you guys have a tub of grays and tans. I want you to select one. Some of them are cool, like this is a cool gray. This is a warm gray. Pick which one you want. I don't care which one. And then in this strip here, what you're going to do is you're going to do a color run with whatever color you pick. Here I'm picking red. I don't care. Pick a color. And I'm going to start to introduce the idea of that neutral tone, that neutral color of the gray. And I'm just going to increase the amount until my color becomes almost so washed out that it really just is actually much closer to this, to just that neutral, than the original hue of the red. And many of the colors out there today that we like that are really popular, they're actually tones. A lot of the, you know, ocean-inspired colors, they are not, you know, think about it. Are those blue? Are those bright, full intensity color blue? Or are they a little bit calmer looking? They're not as intense or bright. That's because they're tones. They have gray in them. We don't realize it, you don't see that, but that's actually what's happened with the color. So I'm just gonna run this a little bit more, and then we're gonna go to our 8 boxes for texture, and I'm gonna kind of fly through those, and you guys are gonna practice those techniques as well, okay? So I've actually added this to the assignment, so you're gonna see this popping into Canvas actually. But I've decided I really want you practicing this idea of the tone, because again, this is really important for the project. None of this is busy work, guys. This is exactly what you'd be doing if you were sitting in the classroom with me. I would be going over this. Some of you might be falling asleep. But this is what we would be addressing in-house, and I'd say, all right, everybody, go. Start practicing. And the more seriously you take these assignments and you really work your hardest on them and really try them out fully, the better the project's going to go for you and the happy you'll be with your results in the end. And that's the point. You know, and you guys saw the samples of this project. You can really get an incredible drawing from this project if you take it seriously. So, all right. So you're starting to see what's happening with this color, right? It gets washed out, faded, but it actually starts getting this lovely